to your career. Today, we'll take a look at how to cope with the silent treatment that often follows a job application, and we'll speak to a woman making waves in men's sport, Canterbury Bulldogs CEO Ray Markey. But first, how does a future with no weekend sound? How about a workplace without desks, or perhaps no central workplace at all? Well, today on Your Career, we're looking at the workplace of the future. How and where will we work, and what jobs will we be doing? Well, to tell us, we're joined by the Director of the Centre for Workplace Futures at Macquarie University, Professor Ray Markey, and also business futurist Morris Mizalowski. We welcome them now. Thanks so much for joining us on the program. Morris, I might start with you in Melbourne. I know you recently wrote in the SMH, weekends will become obsolete in the future. I sure hope they don't, but can you explain to us why?
Yeah, absolutely. The weekend as we know it is really about a religious 2 days off in the middle of a work week. What I argue is that we're going to change the structure of the way we work, when, where and how we work, and the notion of having to take 2 mandated days off every week will really fall by the wayside. Instead, we'll be able to pick and choose the time that we want off that suits us best, that works with our family, that of course works with our work and what we need to do. So the notion of taking time off will certainly continue into the future, but the mandated 2 days on a Saturday and Sunday, I think will slowly disappear.
Doesn't it sort of blur the lines though, Morris, in terms of actually getting that time off if you don't mandate it?
It absolutely does, but we're already doing it. Invariably, people are working over the weekend anyway. They're working into late hours. They're working beyond the traditional 9 to 5. In fact, the 9 to 5 really doesn't exist for most people. What we need to do is we need to set a cultural norm that says you must take time off. This is not about working more. It's about working sensibly and appropriately to the work that you need to do and the environment you're in, and make it ordinary and acceptable for people to take what they need off, which is, if it's the 2 days, take them on a Wednesday or a Thursday or a half a day here because you want to go to the soccer or go to your kids' recital or whatever else.
Professor Ray Markey, let's bring you in. What do you think about this, obsolete weekends?
I don't think weekends are obsolete at all. I think it's true that there have been changing trends in the way that people work over weekends to a greater extent, but we have choice over this in the way we regulate. And one area of choice which has become evident recently is in penalty rates for people who work at the weekend. And there are good reasons for that, because if most people have the weekend off, it means that it's possible for families to get together and for community activities to be programmed in a way which enables maximum community participation. The reason why there's penalty rates is to compensate for workers not being able to do that and engage in those sort of activities. But in fact, if we did away with penalty rates, and we are in the process of reviewing them, and they've been reduced in some areas, I think we would find that a lot of people wouldn't work at the weekend. They're working because they get slightly higher income over a shorter time span. And otherwise, a lot of people in surveys have indicated they wouldn't work at the weekend. So a lot of it has to do with the way we regulate these things, and we have choices. We're probably more flexible so far in a lot of these areas than many other countries in Europe and Asia. We're less flexible than in the US. What sort of society do we want is the sort of choice that we have to make.
Morris, we already see right now, structural change taking place in the economy, making some jobs actually go obsolete. You think some jobs will appear and disappear in the future? In fact, you think that 60% of us will be doing jobs that don't exist now?
I think we'll be doing tasks that don't exist now. We're seeing huge industries rise. Social media 10 years ago was considered to be a fad, but look how many billions of people now make a living out of it or make money from it. We're seeing 3D printers on our horizon. We're seeing industries that are leaving us as well, and they tend to be around the routine work, the things that can be taken over by technology. It's not new to our times. We've done this through millennium. As we change over our technology, unfortunately, skills that were once profitable and allowed people to have jobs disappear as new technologies take their place. There's no good or bad about it. It's an evolutionary comment. And we are going to see new industries, new tasks. The children that are going through education at the moment are going to be working in industries, doing things that today we can't even label or begin to think about.
No, exactly. And Ray, that leads me to my next question. Education will have to change, obviously, in response to new jobs.
Education has been changing anyway. I think the way in which we'll move to a greater extent in the near future is having much more online availability of education for vocational and higher education. A lot more offshore offerings and regional offerings away from the CBDs, but that's been happening already. I think I'd agree that there's going to be big shifts in the types of jobs available. I mean, the obvious thing is there's going to be further huge growth in the services sector and continued decline in manufacturing. In the services sector, healthcare and social assistance are the big areas that we'll see growth, and not just in traditional healthcare, doctors, nurses and so on, aged care, but also in childcare, in things which have only emerged recently, like fitness people, fitness experts, personal trainers, dietitians. That sort of job is definitely on the increase. Hairdressers are going to be fairly stable, and one reason why some of those service industries will continue to grow in employment, and in fact there'll be an expansion of the areas in which services of a personal kind are offered, is that those types of jobs can't be exported offshore, whereas a lot of manufacturing jobs can be.
Morris, I might bring you in terms of business travel. Will there be less of a need to jump on a plane and visit other countries that you're investing in or doing business with? Will everything just become online? I mean, we're already seeing Skype conversations and Skype meetings become big. Will it completely take over business travel?
No. We'll still be travelling for business, but perhaps not as often. What we're seeing now is really the equivalent of what we saw in the events industry, that we believed that social media was going to collapse the event industry and people wouldn't want to get together as much. And in fact, there are more events now than there ever have been before. What we're going to do, though, is be able to get rid of those, again, routine-type activities. Perhaps if we just need to meet and talk about some things, there won't be as much need to jump on a plane. But we're still social animals. There will be times when it's possible and necessary for us to get together. And certainly the airlines believe that we're going to continue to move forward with business travel.
Ray, what do you think in terms of, I guess, what the physical workplace will look like in the future? You know, will we need to still be coming into sort of central business districts, or will it be less necessary?
I think a lot of people will come into central business districts still, but there are a number of trends which are already underway which will create greater variety. One trend is that there's a greater range of central business districts emerging. So years ago people moved to North Sydney into office blocks there because the rent was cheaper than the CBD in Sydney. Now it's getting expensive there. More people are moving towards Macquarie Park. There's been a big movement to Parramatta where there's a huge population base as well. So there's going to be a number of different central business districts to a greater extent, but also there's going to be other changes. There's going to be an increase in teleworking or working anywhere, and that will occur using technology that already exists and is hopefully improving over the near future, to work at home, to work in cafes. And we see this already frequently, and the state government is currently, as with many governments overseas, is currently encouraging the establishment of hubs in regional areas where people who don't come into the CBD can actually go to a workplace still and have full facilities, but actually have a social environment as well, with people from other organisations who are working in a similar area. So all of that is happening and will expand, and it's got huge implications for the impact on transport and infrastructure development. It might make life easier for the state government having to expand those infrastructure areas. It's got huge implications for human resource management, health and safety. What if you trip down the stairs at home while you're working at home and claim that on workers' compensation? There are issues like that. But also supervision of employees. And a lot of managers like to see their employees in the workplace so they can supervise them. Not all, but many do. So there needs to be a cultural change as well as increased technological change, but it's already started.
Morris, do you think the quality of our work environments will get better or decline, and in what ways?
I think that they will get better. To me, I see a future where we're going to be working where and when it's appropriate. We're not going to come necessarily into a centralised space. So therefore, the spaces that we choose to work in will be the ones that are appropriate. If it's our home, again, we should feel that that's a quality environment. If it's a cafe that we've chosen, or perhaps a client's office, I think the quality therefore will be something that we can dictate because it's appropriate to the situation and where that meeting or activity will need to be held.
Will we still retire, Morris? Is that still in the future?
I actually think we'll retire far later. I see a world over the next few decades where we will live easily to 100, 120 for our children. We had an announcement this morning of how we've increased our life expectancy in Australia by 4 years in the last decade and a half. So I think retirement will be something that we will do at a far later age. I think it's something that we will also not be as acute as we are now. We won't necessarily finish working on a date. We might tether off or feather off. We might move off full-time and move into a part-time or some kind of consulting role or some other activity because there are lots of opportunities for us now. We have beta-preneurs, for instance, that are on the rise. They're choosing to work across a work portfolio rather than one single job. And I think we're going to see more and more of that.
All right, thank you so much. Morris Mizalowski, we'll leave it there. And Professor Ray Markey.